All right, this is Chris again, and this is going to be about joining in the round, how you're making it in the round. Now, these are 16-inch, or maybe even longer, 16-inch needles. So I had to cast on quite a few more than just for socks or something. But if you were doing for a hat, you're doing for a sleeve, you're doing for a neckline, whatever it is, it's about how to join it in the round. Okay, so this was our first cast on stitch. This is our last one. Okay, there it is attached. So joining around is meaning you're just going to literally take and now go from the last to the first. But if you think about when we're knitting flat, once you knit one stitch, the yarn's always on attached to your left hand, right? We're always knitting off our right to our left. So we're going to end up, because we have stitches already on there. So you start with this working yarn with the needle, the last cast on, in your left hand, and this one in the right hand. Now, if you notice, I laid my yarn and my stitches down so all the braid end is inside. Okay, I might have to stretch it a little bit here and there, but I think once I get going, it'll be all right. So now I don't want to see a roll around the needle. Okay, I don't want to see this. I don't want to say, oh, it's all down, down, down. Oh, well, but I went back down. No, you want to make sure they stayed there the whole time. Went all the way around. So this would be like if you're doing a hat on a 16-inch, or if you would, this was a smaller yarn and smaller needle, shorter needles, you might be doing a sock this way, a neckline, whatever. So now you can say, okay, so like our class is for a sock. So we're going to start the ribbing. And in my sock pattern, it says do by one or 2 by 2 ribbing. It's your choice. It's what you want it to look like. Okay, so now I'm going to take this yarn, that's the last stitch I cast on, and I'm going to join it to the first stitch I cast on. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to knit, and I'm going to pull it through. There's first, and see how my tail's right there? Now I'm going to turn around, bring it forward, purl. Now, you will have a little bit of a gap right here. You can see it. See it? See how it pulls? See how that's right there? Do not fret. People do all these different methods trying to close this up. This is where my tail is, right? So when I weave in my ends, guess what I can do? I can close that gap. So I'm not too worried about it. And it'll actually close as I knit along. So I'm going to knit and get another round going, and I'm going to come right back to you in a moment. Okay, so here I am, I'm back around. Okay, and you can tell I'm almost to the end. I'm right there. So I got just a handful, and you can see that big gap. You can see how that's the last stitch in the first stitch. Okay, so let me just get back. So I gotta knit, oops, purl, knit, purl. Oops, let's move that around, that helping. I pulled it out, stretching so I could show you that big gap. Okay, so now I know. So now I've finished, I'm at the end of the round. You can see that gap is really big, close to an inch. Okay, but I'm not worried because when I do, I'll pull this, and the next row is going to take care of a lot of that. Okay, so don't even hesitate. So at this point, if you're knitting on one, if you're doing a circular needle and you're not doing magic loop or two at a thing or whatever, you're going to put a stitch marker now before I start the second round. The other thing I always do is I always check one more time. I want to make sure, because at this point you only have one strand between. So if by chance you put a twist in here, and you start doing this and you go, oh, wait a minute, I got a twist. You only have one strand, so it's easy to just turn that strand. Okay, if you wait until you have two strands, then you're going to be crisscrossing and you're going to be twisting those strands. So at this point, if I see this, I can turn around and say, nope, 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 let's get this back around. I can move them all and I can just twirl it around inside and now I'm back. So I not only check on before I do the first round about my edges, I check on the second round because it's so easy to fix right there. Once you start going past a couple rounds, it gets messy. Okay, so now I'm going to put on my stitch marker and I'm going to continue knitting. Now look at that gap. Remember, it's almost an inch, maybe 3/4. Okay, I'm going to knit, give it a little tug, purl, knit, purl, and you will be knit. I'll do one more set. And look at that. Look how much tighter that is already. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger here. But that's only after the second round. The next round is going to bring it a little tighter. And then when we weave this in, look at this. Just pulling it made it tighter. Okay? We'll take care of it. So now at this point, we're always, when you're knitting in the round, you're always knitting on what we call the right side of the work. Okay? And that's great. It makes life so much easier in so many ways. But when you're knitting ribbing, knitting in the both sides look the same. Okay, so let's say you get done tonight and you put it down and you put your stitch markers on, stoppers on it or whatever, and you put it down and you lay it to the side and you pick it up the next day. Okay. It's ribbing, okay? Both sides look like ribbing. How do you tell? Where do you tell? So just like in flat knitting, because we're always knitting in a circle, we're never hitting an edge, we're always on the right side of the work, your yarn will be attached to your right hand needle because we're always taking the stitches from the left and moving them to the right. So it's going to be attached here. So if you pick it up and it's over here, just flip it over and you've got it here. Now, once you do your cuff, which, you know, in the pattern, I say 1 to 1.5 inches. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I do whatever I feel like doing at the time. Okay. Then you're going to stop doing the ribbing and you're going to continue knitting either in, most likely, in stockinette. Stockinette is when all the knit stitches are on the right side of the work, okay, all the V's. So to do that, all you gotta do is continuously knit every stitch over and over and over again for multiple rounds, okay? So if you notice, I'm saying rounds because what it is, when you're knitting and you joined in the round, you're knitting round. If a pattern says row, you're knitting flat. If it says round, it's telling you you're knitting a circle. Okay, so that you just, then you're just gonna be knit. If you're doing the broken, you know, the texture stitch, you'll have some purls in there. But other than that, you're just gonna be knit, knit, knit once you get done the cuff. So it makes life a lot easier in a lot of ways. Now I will come back. I will talk about how to do it on two needles instead of one small circular, like for the socks, instead of doing it on 9-inch, how you could do it on 2 circulars. And I also talk about magic loop on a video, and I will also talk about how to cast on 2 at a time for magic loop and or 2 cable needles. All right, happy knitting.